A Thursday morning with sunshine in 2001. We're in the legislative chambers here in Clinton County on the second floor, only about 20 steps from where I work in the probation department. We're going to interview a guy who's had a familiar spot on the hot seat here for many years. So the fact that his seat may be warm in this room is nothing new today, although there's nobody here to argue with him. So whatever he says will be accepted as 100% gospel. I'm with Clinton County Administrator Bill Bingel. How are you, Bill?
Good, Gordy.
You and I haven't interviewed Bill since radio days, but we used to have some fun.
We had a lot of fun.
Calvin and I have tried since we've done this program over the last several years to cover most of the county offices here for a number of reasons. First of all, it behooves the public to know how things work on the inside. And I find that even among people who work in this building, sometimes they're not totally familiar with what's going on across the hall. Do you find that's true?
I think that's true. A lot of people are curious, and they come over to see what's going on, and they stop the girls in my office at different places and want to know what's going on and who's going to be chair of this, and all about county government.
It's all about county government. And, I could say, does politics play any role in what you do, Bill? We know, of course, it plays everything in what you do, doesn't it?
It seems to be there in the background at all times.
Yeah. You've been here more than a week and a half. How long have you been in this position as county administrator?
In October, I celebrated my 23rd year with the county, so I'm in my 24th year. Isn't
that amazing? Little did you realize the day you walked in the door that you'd still be here in 2001, or did you really have an idea what you're getting into?
No, actually I didn't. When I came to work here, I left the air base at a pretty good job and actually took a pay cut and came in as an accountant. And now, 1985, I took over as administrator when Francis Broderick left, and thought that if I got 5 years under my belt, 5-year term, that maybe I'd look to go to Albany or move something up. It would be good experience. And here I am, and last year I got appointed to my 4th 5-year term.
Isn't that amazing? It's the same thing happened to me when I moved here in 1961, never dreaming that 36 years later I would just be stepping out of the radio business and into a whole different field as a crime victims advocate here in the County Government Center. Sometimes we just can't predict.
No, we can't predict what the future holds. And that's what makes this job interesting for me. I think every day I can safely say I do something different every day. I talk to different people, handle a lot of different things. One day it's landfill, and the next day it's court problems, and the day after that might be a capital construction project like the new offices we're building for you, Gordon, the probation department.
Yeah, you keep telling me we're going to move April 15th. I said I'll believe it when I see the boxes get filled over there.
It's going a little slower than we planned, but hopefully once the outside walls goes up that they're doing now, and winter construction with a plastic sheet around them, the inside will go quicker.
That's something that people have talked about. As long as you brought it up, we'll talk about that subject. Little did anybody realize when they built this fabulous new Clinton County Government Center here at 137 Margaret Street way back when that, number one, in a few years we'd run out of space inside, but with that giant parking lots that we'd run out of space outside. We've done both.
We've seriously have some space issues to deal with. Last year we had a space study done, and we looked down the road 5 years and 10 years, and as a result of that study, the consultant said we should expand the old jail, which was unoccupied, except for using the bottom floor for storage. And now we're building a new state-of-the-art probation office with a lot of good features, security features, interview rooms, separation of clients, stuff that you dearly miss in your place now that you have in probation. You have very little conference space, and this will be a plus. And this was all generated because we had a problem in the court system. They added a 3rd judge, and up on the 3rd floor where there were 16 or 17 people when I came to work in 1977, there's probably close to 50 people working up there. So things have changed, and we have to address that. The other item we're looking at and going to look at in 2001 will be parking. We've applied for a parking grant with the city, And to either build a parking garage or expand our parking lot.
Where would you build a parking garage?
Right up over the existing
Oh, really?
lot.
Oh, you mean an elevated?
Yes, elevated, second.
Ooh. It's something that I heard mentioned last year, but I didn't know it was a serious consideration.
Yeah, the city planning department and the county planning department got together and collaborated on a grant, and we're waiting to hear, hopefully we'll hear this year, that we've got some money to address the parking problem.
You know, it's truly amazing. We do a lot of historical things, and now that you are a historical figure here, having been in your job for so long, it dawns on me every morning when I pull in the parking lot here at 7:30 in the morning that when I first came to Plattsburgh, I used to pull in roughly the same place to go to work at Weave at 38 Court Street, which was located right there.
I can remember Weave being across the street from us, Court Street.
Isn't that amazing?
It is. This building was actually built the year before I came to work here and occupied in 1976, I believe. So I've been here almost since the day it opened, and we've seen changes throughout the building. And it is hard to believe that where we were standing, there was an old series of buildings that they tore down, and the county fathers at the time were thinking about going outside the city limits. And the city wanted the county seat so badly, downtown Plattsburgh, that they offered them money if they would stay down to help towards the construction. And the county legislature, I guess, agreed to build down in the city of Plattsburgh, although some of the legislators, when I first came on, said the biggest mistake they ever made was not building out by the airport, where they would have room to expand.
Now we're thinking of moving the airport back to the air base.
Now we're thinking about moving the airport, right?
It's truly amazing how many things have happened before and since Plattsburgh Air Force Base closed, that it's affected a lot of our thinking, hasn't it?
It has. It affected my life 2 different years and ate quite a bit of the summer up. I remember 2 different times. And you were part of that gathering that we had to try to convince. We won the first round in 1991, I believe it was, and then we lost in 1993.
It was a hard battle, and the scars are still there. I mean, I'm very happy with the way many things are going, and I can't wait for the transfer of land and see the next blossoming out there. But, there's still a certain amount of pain when I drive onto the old base or even on the new base. Because with me, it started on construction back in the middle 1950s. That's what helped to pay for my college career, was working on construction, pouring cement on the base.
Well,
and Kay and I were married in the old base chapel, so yeah, there are a lot of pangs of...
You've got some memories there, too.
Yeah.
Well, I worked on the base for 7 years, so I had a lot of memories. From 1970 to 77, I worked there. And my father worked on the base putting up the housing.
Oh, did he really?
When the mines were closed a couple different times, when they were closed in Line Mountain, when Republic was on strike. So I guess my memories go way back, too.
That's great. Now, we do have our roots down here in the North Country. Bill and I talk about this all the time. Back when we were fighting to save the base, we talked about that thing called quality of life, and they do these park updates on WPTZ Channel 5 now, and they still talk about the quality of life. And that's probably the reason why you and I stayed around here.
Oh, absolutely. I think the quality of life here is great. The few times that I thought about moving away, something holds me here.
Me too.
My parents were originally from here, and my father's still alive, and I get to see him almost every week. And I belong to a couple of hunting camps and like to fish and like Lake Champlain, so I do a lot of things.
That's a salvation almost sometimes. You and I have talked about that many times too, getting away from all of this stuff. The good and the bad, but just getting away, and you get out in hunting camp, and you don't have to worry about putting out 48 brush fires today.
No, I really enjoy going up in the woods all seasons, whether it's now in the wintertime when I can go cross-country skiing, or the summertime when I can fish, or later on in the summer when I'm picking berries, or during hunting season. I don't really kill that many deer. I've never shot one in my life, but it's good to get away and just go sit in the woods.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. We talk about it often. There's so much fantastic country around us that none of us have discovered. There's still some pretty good wilderness within 100 miles of where we're standing right now, and it's you know, as I've said on this program, every time I drive by Poca Moonshine on the Northway, I look up there and I say, my God, that is fantastic. So it's good. It's good for the soul to
It
be
is.
able to just take a walk in the woods, and we've talked about it many times. But part of the reason for this program, Bill, is, in general, is to promote the place we live, the people, and we've interviewed many, many interesting people, but the place. It is a unique and wonderful place to live. As much as we find fault at times with parts of the way things work, that's all right, because maybe we can fix those. But it's still a great place to live and work.
I think it's probably the best place in the world. I've been fortunate in my career to, a few years ago, I was president of the New York State Association of Counties, and got to meet a lot of folks from around the state. And I just happened to be president the year we had the ice storm. So when we put out the call for assistance, I had highway superintendents, other county administrators offer to send up help, and they did send up help. 911 people that came up, ambulance squads, and everybody talked that visited here. And I tried to meet as many volunteers as I could that came up. All talked about the quality of life here and how hardy the people were and what a great bunch of folks, the North Country people were.
I got emails for a long time from telephone people from Ohio, and you know, just saying, that's so great. We saw your column on the newspaper, and we just want to let you know how much we enjoyed being up there and how great the people were when we knocked on their doors. Because they could have griped and complained. There was a lot to complain about
There was, they
for
were.
citizens, but people did come together, and they do come together, and that's another theme that weaves through almost all of the programs that we do, how people do come together in the North Country. You know, I spent a long career in the radio. People never failed to come forward. If you expressed a need, and you were pretty good about expressing that need so the people realized it was, they would be out in droves, no matter whether it was buying a new ambulance for the city way back in the 60s or supporting some sick child or whatever it was, or when we were trying to save the airbase.
Right. I've one of my things that I do every year, and it just seems to grow and grow, is my deputy administrator used to be Carol Wallet, who was a North Country native.
How much did we love Carol, huh?
And Carol died of cancer, I think 4 or 5 years ago now. Anyway, we've sponsored an annual golf tournament every year for hospice. And last year we raised over $16,000. Our first year we raised about $3,000. So it's quite an undertaking, and you can't believe the support that we get. And people don't play for the prizes in the tournament because the prizes are very little. It's probably one of the tournaments that pays the least out of any of them in the summertime, and there are several of those. But the people that want to participate, it's just unbelievable. And last year, some of the winners who, I think the first place team, they got $50 apiece. Some of the people gave their money back towards hospice.
Think about that, folks.
Yeah.
That's pretty neat. I mean, how many of those campaigns have we seen down through the years, over and over and over again, to help groups and individuals? It's truly amazing. And as many years as I've been here, every year I learn about some more key people who work behind the scenes for no glory, but just because they want to help somebody. I have the privilege of serving on a few local foundations, and I don't contribute much except sitting in the chair and doing whatever I can in my own humble way. But I watch these people who have very busy business lives, who give countless hundreds of hours to fundraising in the background for people and organizations who need it. And you and I both know that there's a nucleus of about 100 people in this county who do amazing things behind the scenes.
There are. It is amazing. I'm surprised every time that I get involved in something, and I get asked a lot to lend my name or my hand to help somebody do something in fundraising, or I volunteered for the YMCA
Did you?
chairmanship drive one year, and membership drive, I should say. I've been involved with a thing at Clinton Community College with their foundation. I'm an active member of the Elks Club and the delivering toys at Christmas time to people that the Christmas Bureau can't get to. And it's amazing how many people just give of their time and talents to do this.
But you know, the best part of it is, and we haven't even really talked a great deal about what goes on in this office, and we promise we will, but we like to talk about where we live and promote it. The best part of it is, all that comes back to you. I was taught that by my father, and I've proved it down through the years. It all comes back to you tenfold. You have a problem in your family, and you've had, serious illnesses and deaths in your family, and so have I. They're back there to respond to you, and that's the beauty of it.
Absolutely. I have so many friends and acquaintances in the North Country that you sit back and you say, well, I go to church sometime or go to the store and see how many people you run into. On a Saturday morning, I might see 15 people that I run into in the grocery store that I know.
Go to a restaurant. We went to a restaurant a couple of weeks ago, and I'll bet you 25 people were at the table before we left, and my wife just goes, I can't believe it. But that's the beauty of it.
It is.
Really is. All right, let's talk about your job as Clinton County Administrator. It sounds like one of those catch-all titles, but it's pretty true. You oversee an awful lot of stuff in this county. Start from the beginning and let people know what your general duties are.
Well, generally speaking, I would be considered the executive branch in government if you were going to compare it to give a true civics lesson. The 10 legislators being the legislative branch, they make policy and expect me to carry it out. So they make the local laws and pass the resolutions, adopt the budget, but probably it all starts with the budget because you can't run government without money or people, and you need money to pay the people. So it begins with the budget process, and that's a big part of my job at certain times of the year. And then to monitor the budget once it's passed to make sure we stay within our spending limits, and the department heads do, and the revenues come in like they should, and state aid claims get processed. And so I oversee just about every department on a day-to-day basis. There are some elected folks in county government, the county treasurer, the county clerk, the sheriff, the district attorney that don't report to me, but they work with me in budgetary matters and personnel matters and day-to-day operational things. So you could say day-to-day I'm the CEO of the county, and the chairperson of the legislature is the chief elected and has that responsibility for acting as the chief elected.
It's an awesome responsibility, and I'm not going to ask you how many days you went home and hit your fist on the table and said, I'm sick of it and I can't take it anymore. And then you got a good night's sleep and came back and did it again for all these years.
Well, sometimes it's frustrating, but a lot of times it's rewarding. I think there are a lot of good things that happen in the job, especially meeting people, as I mentioned before, and I keep going back to that. I'm pretty proud of very proud of the county workforce and the type and caliber of people we have working for us, department heads, people that have some awesome responsibilities. Take social services, for example, where they take, as you know, because you rub elbows with social services in your line of work, taking a child away from parents and placing them in foster care. Has to be a terrible job, terrible responsibility. Or being a guardian for somebody that can't cope with themselves, has mental illness, or has money problems, just problems that only those folks in social services know how to deal with. And I take my hats off to those folks. Jim King and his 911 operation.
One of the best in the country.
Absolutely. We're looked at as a model throughout the state, and Jim gets visits from people from other states wanting to see this operation. And that's awesome responsibility with the 911 calls come in. These people that are answering the phones do some tremendous work up front to find out what the emergency is, and in some cases a happy ending like a birth, talking somebody into a birth over the phone while they're at home because they couldn't make it to the hospital. We've had a couple of those. We've had some saves where young children have called in and the dispatcher has told the people what to do. We have a tremendous highway department. They do a lot of things, keep people safe on the roads. Your department, probation, you're dealing with trying to get people back and into production, productive people in society. And I could, go on, but there are a lot of people that do a lot of good things.
A lot of good things. And lately they've been cramped for space, and social services and the health department and probation and on. And I've seen an awful lot of master plans that have undergone a lot of changes over the last 3 or 4 years.
We're hoping to eliminate some of our space problems this year, especially with the move to probation. That'll allow the district attorney to come down from the 3rd floor and allow enough room for the new family court judge. And then we have to look at space for our health department. They're in 2 buildings now, and they're pretty crowded. Office for the aging folks could use a little extra space. Our veterans office could use some more space. And we have a terrible problem with space for records.
Oh, it's always a problem.
As government grows, our records grow. We have requirements, payroll records, for example, we have to keep 50 or 75 years.
Come on. I had
Absolutely.
no idea.
Right. And
Wow.
other records, like in my office, I think we have probably about 25 or 30 filing cabinets between the auditing department and the legislative branch and purchasing, and 30 filing cabinets, I'll say. I think there's 12 in one area and 18 in the other. 2 years worth of material. We keep the current year and the prior year, and we box up and send to the storeroom the other records, and we have to keep 7 years of records. So we have one full room about half the size of the room we're in with nothing but legislative records in it.
Fortunately, there are some new state-of-the-art techniques for storing files. The district attorney's office got a beautiful setup there only, last year, I think, upstairs, and that's pretty decent.
They've got one of the new filing systems, and probation is getting
I
a
heard
bunch
about
of those.
that, yeah.
I think they're getting 4 banks of those in the new offices, which will eliminate a lot of need for space. And we've done stuff about, we've tried to microfilm records. We're doing that in social services. The county clerk has got a new imaging system, which is eventually going to replace all the books down there.
It's amazing all by itself.
And that's quite an amazing system. And John Zerlo has been very successful in implementing that and making it go. He calls the computer system a jukebox, and I guess that's the way he explains it to new legislators, is it takes a disc and puts the information in, and you can look it up at the counter on a computer screen.
It's decent. We did a nice interview with John and his staff a while back, maybe a year ago.
Oh, so you got the
And
jukebox tour.
We got the jukebox tour, and it really amazes us because an awful lot of people are in and out of that office in the course of a year for all the reasons we know, and some maybe that our viewers may not be aware of. So that's a busy place.
He has, I think, 5 different abstract companies that actually work out of his office, and they handle a lot of transactions a year. One of the new legislators was on tour with me yesterday going through the offices, and she asked John how many copies he made a year on those machines, and he said 100,000.
Wow.
So that's 100,000 copies of deeds or liens or the legal papers that he has down there, mortgages. That's a lot of paper.
Yeah, John Q. Public can go in there and access all kinds of information down there when he needs to. We're going to continue our program in just a moment. Well, we've talked a lot, Bill, about the makeup of the county and the various offices that exist. Let's talk about your office specifically. How many people do you have working for you?
Right now I have 8 people working for me. I have 3 secretarial positions, and I have a purchasing agent. It's 4, and I have 4 people that do auditing work. And one of the people, Jean Rasco, also plays a major role in the budget preparation. Her title is accountant, and she does auditing, levies the taxes for me every year, which is quite a job in itself. We put out the tax bills for every home and business in Clinton County, 30-some tax bills, including the city of Plattsburgh, and that just doesn't happen. There's a lot of hard work that goes into that. We, once the budgets are passed, all the town budgets, we have to put down general fund taxes, highway taxes, special district taxes. Town of Plattsburgh alone, for example, has 30-some special districts that all have a tax rate. They're all carried out to probably 10 decimal places. And Jean works all of this up in a spreadsheet program that she wrote herself, and with some help double-checking the numbers to make sure we have the right budget numbers down, we levy the right taxes, we finally get this all together, and it then accesses the real property file, and people get their individual tax bills. So it's quite a process.
It's quite an organization, and most of what happens in this building and in other county offices and other buildings is behind the scenes. Unless there's a big issue, the media just kind of lets things go, you know. But they look for something to talk about on a given day, whether it's the landfill or what it might be. So every now and again, you got to get up front and explain yourself, right?
Right. A lot of times, it seems like in the last few years, the landfill has been the big issue. And I probably spend 1 day a week anyway on just landfill-related issues.
Do you really?
Right now, the county is getting ready to do with Casella, what's called a environmental impact assessment. And this is a full-blown environmental impact assessment. And the first process in that was a scoping document, which we did last year. That's where we went to the public with an outline of what areas we were going to study. And by we, I'm throwing Casella in there. They're doing the bulk of the work and, of course, paying for all of it. We have special counsel that is looking over that for us, which is paid for by Casella. And we have a special engineer. And for the last 6 or 7 months, they've been preparing a draft environmental impact statement, which is the next step of the process. Once that draft comes out, there'll be a comment period, there'll be a public meeting about it, and people will be able to obtain copies of it, look at it, review it, and this will tell what the impacts are in certain areas. For example, traffic, noise pollution, any other type of pollution that is possible, seagull problems, you name it, it'll be in there.
You think that's not a factor?
And it'll also contain what our plans are for the future. And Casella's in the process right now of buying some more property from New York State Electric and Gas, about 100 acres, right in the adjacent to our landfill, which they'll talk about future development, which will take us 30 more years out into the future with what space is available now and what. So this is a big project, and I'm in constant contact with our special counsel, our engineering consultant, Casella, the New York State Electric and Gas folks, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, which is a hurdle that has to be cleared if anybody wants to purchase land from a public utility like NYSEG. So there's a lot of interaction. And of course, when a windy day comes up and we have garbage bags to the top of trees.
Right on the 6 o'clock news, right?
2 nights in a row.
Yeah.
Newspaper editorial, another newspaper story. And it's like it's something we could prevent when you have 50 or 60 mile an hour winds picking up stuff off the face of the landfill, loose plastic bags, which are thrown out by folks, or when the compactor crushes the garbage. We have protective fences up, and it catches probably 90% of it, but on those days where we lose 10%, you think we were polluting the world.
You know, I would never intentionally defend the media for doing stories that are inaccurate or insensitive, because I worked in the media for a long, long time, and I certainly can't blame the media for picking up on a story when the trees are all full. But it all has to do with perspective, doesn't it?
It does, and you know, Casella is very concerned about their image. They had 14 workers out there the next day picking up the bags, and there's a few that they couldn't reach. that are up in the trees, and they're going to get a bucket truck and get the rest of them. They called me this week to tell me that's what their plans were, and I took a ride up there, which I probably take a ride up once a week as part of my job, to look at that and to meet with those folks on various issues. It didn't look terrible to me in any way, but I suppose if you live in the neighborhood, you have a different perspective.
People in the neighborhoods up there have a lot of interesting perspectives. I had the good fortune of being in the radio business for a long time here, and Bill and I talked about this landfill issue way back in its embryonic stages. And you forecast how you thought things were going to turn out. Have there been any mammoth surprises in that whole story since the beginning?
No,
I know there have been some battles.
There have been some battles, but I think, first of all, and Casella does a great job. DEC folks tell us that they run one of the best landfill operations in all of New York State. They're also more scrutinized by DEC than any other operation in New York State. And I've been to some other operations, probably 6 or 7 different landfills in the state throughout the course of my career, and I see this one all the time. And our consultants, the attorney that we have, who does nothing but landfill work, a lot of it, down from the Glens Falls area, and our consulting engineer, CT Mail, who they're in the landfill business. They say that this is one of the best, if not the best, landfill they've ever seen.
Boy, that's a topic of a whole. We could do 2 hours on waste and refuse and how serious the problem is in other areas of this state and other states in the Union. I can't even imagine what it must be in New York and Long Island. So in many ways, we're fortunate to have what we have.
I think we are. I think we've got a fixed price at convenience stations now where somebody can throw a bag of garbage away now for the same price they'll be able to throw it away for in 20 years. Casella's guaranteed that in the contract. And I think we have a plan that takes us well into a 25 or 30-year range for landfilling. And I don't think there are many places in the state that have a 20 or 25-year plan. And when you're looking at landfill as a business like Casella does, they're a large business that handles landfills, and they're traded on the stock exchange. They're in it to make money, but they're also in it to do it right, so they can't afford any environmental slip-ups or any problems, regulatory problems, because it will hurt their business and their stockholders will be unhappy. And when stock goes down, you know what happens with that, Gordy.
And dialogue's not a bad thing. If you didn't hear from the hinterland sometimes, you wouldn't know what people were thinking about. And dialogue's not a bad thing. The democratic process works here in Clinton County. It really does. It
does, and I don't think the people are any more irrational about this or disrespectful. In fact, I think they're more respectful and more mindful and have meaningful dialogue with us as opposed to some other places where it really takes a nasty turn.
Yeah. The people want to know that folks on the top like you and the Clinton County Legislature have their best interests at heart. And that's what the democratic process is all about. And if they think somebody doesn't, then they'll take care of that the next time an election rolls around.
That's right. They certainly will. And I think that you see that on a national level as well as a local level. I don't think the landfill issue itself is a deal breaker when it comes to elections, but there are a couple of folks on the legislature who feel very strong against private operation of the landfill, and they've represent an area that's around Schuyler Falls, and they're sticking to that position. And their constituents tell them all the time, that's where we want you to be on this issue.
Well, I'm a firm believer in dialogue and debate, and may the best man or woman win in this case. Let's talk about some other issues now. First of all, how many employees does Clinton County have? This will be a surprise to many of our viewers.
We have both full-time and part-time, over 800 employees.
I think some people will be surprised because, we're not the biggest county in New York State. We like to think we do a lot of things right up here. To know that there are 800 employees. It boggles my mind every time I hear the figure.
We have, when you think of the different operations that we have around, we have probably 160 people in the Department of Social Services. We have 100 people in the Health Department, for example. Our Sheriff's Department staff is probably 60, 65 people. Our Highway Department, 60 people. So we have some good-size operations. Mental Health Department, probably 40 people. Your Probation Department, between 45 and 50 people. So there are a lot of jobs in government. Nursing home, our county nursing home, 100 people. A lot of.
Boy, let us not forget the Clinton County Nursing Home. Yeah.
Right now, we're having some problems recruiting nurses, like they are all over the nation.
Well, join the club. I just came from a foundation meeting at CVPH Medical Center this morning, talking about not only this hospital, but hospitals everywhere. It's just a critical shortage across the nation right now.
It is, and I don't understand what the problem is. We're fortunate in Clinton County because we have two fine nursing programs, one at Clinton Community and one at Plattsburgh State. And still, we're having trouble, all nursing homes, and the hospital in the Plattsburgh, as you said, with nursing.
Yep. All right, let's talk, I want to cover two things. Let's talk about the union first. A lot of those employees that you mentioned belong to a union.
Probably over 700 belong to the union, and CSEA actually has two unions here. One group represents the Sheriff's Department, and the other unit of CSEA represents all the other employees. So we have two sets of negotiations to deal with. The Sheriff's contract runs out the end of 2002, and the general unit runs out 12/31 this year. So we'll be sitting down at the bargaining table probably about May and trading packages and carrying on negotiations and hopefully coming to some type of resolve by the end of the summer.
I think a lot of people watching this program belong to one union or another. Many of our viewers, of course, are correction officers or work for the state in one capacity or another. But hopefully, some of our viewers work for Clinton County, and that I'm always interested in watching from the periphery and never getting directly involved in negotiations with unions. And before this job, of course, I worked for all those years without being in a union. I find the process fascinating. Boy, I'll tell you, it doesn't come to blows, but it comes pretty close. That last contract fight with Clinton County was a long one, wasn't it?
The last one was a difficult contract. We were in a time when inflation was low and cost of living increases were down in the 1% and 2% range, probably closer to 2%. And I think the legislators felt that anything above that was not warranted in terms of a salary increase. And the union felt that they should get more of an increase than 2%. So we ended up going through a process which brought us to mediation and then fact-finding. And finally, the fact-finder made a report, and both sides agreed to go with the fact-finder's recommendation. But it was a long, protracted contract, and union members were upset. We were picketed for the first time in several years. So it was a battle.
Talk about a collective sigh of relief when one of those battles is finally over, though, for everybody. It seems like the next one begins very soon after that.
It was. We, in fact, we had a very nice signing ceremony. The president of the union showed up, and the chairperson of the legislature, and everybody was generally in a very good mood that day, and it was good to get it behind us.
Well, we've already found out where the buck stops here in Clinton County, but let's talk about the makeup of this legislature. It's always interesting, and as an observer, it's always been fascinating to me to see what happens when you have a majority, one majority or the other sitting, and things, the complexion of the legislature's changed a little bit this time around.
Well, this time around, it went from a 9-1 Republican majority to a 6-4 Republican majority, which was a big change. It was the largest majority the legislature has ever had since its existence, and that goes back to 1968 or 69, I believe, the county legislature started. And it certainly was the largest one in my 23 years here. 9-1, I saw some 7-3 boards, 7 Republicans, 3 Democrats. And I saw many 5-5 boards. And I've always said and maintain it that it was the best boards I ever worked with were boards that were 5 Republicans and 5 Democrats. Because I think politics in many ways went out the window and people worked together and they got issues solved. It seemed like there were more agreements and more progress with 5-5 boards. And I'll probably regret saying this, but that's been my experience. And I think with a 6-4 board, you have 5 new legislators, which is the largest turnover I've ever had in one legislative election since I've been here. And I think you have people bringing new ideas to the board, and that'll be good. I think the change is always good. I don't mind change.
I agree with you there. And viewing it, I think change is good, but it's a tough job for you when you have that many new legislators coming on board all at the same time, because you have to get very much involved in that indoctrination process.
Well, I've had a lot of legislators, the new ones that have paid me visits and made phone calls and asked a lot of questions, and we had more questions at our first legislative meeting last week than I'd experienced in the last several years. But it was good. They were good questions, and people wanted to know what this resolution was about or that resolution because we hadn't had any committee meetings. And they were pretty routine resolutions, but for somebody that was brand new to the process, they had good questions. What's this grant program about? Or a grant renewal, but what's it about? So we answered those questions, and I expect I'll receive more questions. Last night we had our first personnel meeting of the year, and it probably lasted an hour longer than normal, but there was a lot of good dialogue and a lot of good questions.
I love to watch the process, and I always listen to people who will call me up just to talk and complain about one thing or another that's happening here in Clinton County, and my suggestion always is, if you don't like what's happening, do something about it. Run for office next time around yourself. Show up at the Clinton County legislative session. I've seen this gallery overpacked with standing room only when there's a real hot issue. But for the most part, John Q. Public doesn't show up here. But it behooves almost everybody to come up here once in a while just to see what happens in the course of a meeting night before they start complaining.
I think so. I think people have to sit back and observe what the process is before they can criticize it, I guess is probably the best way to put it, or make suggestions for change. And certainly we do have a time at all our public meetings for the public to address the legislature. And I've been addressed a number of times throughout my career.
Not always in endearing terms.
No, not always, but sometimes when people come and they have a question, the legislator will say, why don't you meet with Mr. Bingel tomorrow, set up an appointment, and he'll sit down and talk to you about this and explain things. Or why don't you talk to the chairperson of the legislature? I'd love to hear your ideas and what you have to say. So some good things have come out of people coming and going to a meeting.
How important is that position of chairperson of the Clinton County Legislature?
I think it's a position that people hold in great respect because you're selected by your peers to represent the legislative body. I look at it as somebody that has to be a consensus builder, a peacemaker at times, and somebody that has to remain neutral at most of the times and try to bring people together. And I think the chairperson this year will do that. He's made his State of the County address and talked about consensus building. And we've had, over the years, I've served with some very good chairpersons of the legislature. I was going to sit down and count that up one day, but I think I've served probably with 10 or 11 different chairpeople over the 23 years. We had some multiple years. I think Don Garrett was probably chairperson 9 different times, and Bob Bruno probably 8 different times.
That's right, too, sure.
So I've served with Celine Paquette most recently, Jay LePage when he was on the board, Larry Paquette when he was on the board. So Janet Dupree chaired the legislature way back when, before she was county treasurer. Sam Trombley in the bicentennial year.
I remember very well.
And so I've enjoyed working with each person. They have their own management style, and it's something that you have to get accustomed to. And if they want to change something, let them change. I think change is good.
It's been a very interesting tenure sitting in your seat here through the years. I'd always like to ask people I interview, if you had a crystal ball and you could change something in the year 2001, you know, a lot of us expected some very interesting things to happen when Y2K rolled around. For some reason, younger people than me thought there was going to be all kinds of amazing things happen just because the calendar turned to the year 2000. None of that happened. We spent a lot of money getting ready for Y2K here in this county. And fortunately, we didn't have any big breakdowns or anything else. But now that we're well into this new century, and now that we know for sure that we're in a new millennium in 2001, what would you like to see happen this year if you had your druthers, Bill?
I'd like to see us make some progress on our space problems and look at those issues maybe in a long-term 3 or 4 year, where are we going to do, where are we going to go, what are we going to do type of thing. Certainly the move with probation will help, but we're still looking at space for the health department, and we need to do something about our records retention. And I feel confident that talking with the new chairperson of the Buildings and Grounds Committee, and I took her on a tour yesterday to look at records and space needs throughout the 3 buildings that we have here. She's got a pretty good idea of what the problems are, and now we have to look for the solutions. And I think some of the other things that we're going to get done this year, we're starting the first year of our aggressive pavement management plan, where we're accelerating 15 years worth of work into 7 years using the tobacco funds that we actually have on hand to do that. And that'll be significant. I think people will notice that. So those things will get done. There's been a lot said and a lot made of the staff turnover problems at the jail, and I'd like to see that addressed. I'd like to come to some type of solution. I know that we probably can't solve all the problems of the world, and I don't think money is the only issue with the jail. I think it's staffing itself and mandated overtime. And as we go down the road and start to look into this problem, I think we're going to be able to get a handle on it and help solve some of it. But, you know, with every good economy, there comes some problems. And part of the problem is a lot of people aren't looking for jobs, and we're losing people to higher paying jobs.
Listen, this is not a new issue with the Clinton County Jail. That was a big topic of conversation when I moved here in 1961.
Yeah, and it seems to come full cycle again. And I think we have to look at the jail also about future expansion. We're looking at running pretty close to capacity. Our revenue used to be $1 million a year. At one point, it hit almost 1.1 million, taking in prisoners from other areas. Other counties, the federal prisoners, and now the budget the last couple of years has been down around the $450,000, $500,000 mark. So we're running higher local inmate populations. So we're going to need to look at space at some point and do some other projecting. And we do have the space to physically build down there. When we built the jail originally, we sized it so that we can easily put on another wing. The utilities are such that we can add another wing without having to go major expenses with new upgrade of the air conditioning system, for example, and the power supply and that type of stuff. So that's something I think we'll be looking at this year. And there's the ever famous move the county airport issue that we have to bring some closure to, and working with Park on that. Hopefully the transfer will take place on the property from the federal government to the local government. So there's a lot of things I think that are on the horizon for next year, or the year we're in now. I keep referring to it as next year, but
it is nice to see this area grow. We've been accused through the years of not being very progressive here in Clinton County, and we've always been compared with Burlington across the lake, probably unfairly most of the time for reasons you and I know. But I think, and I've said this for a couple of years now, I think this county is ready to really move in some exciting directions, don't you?
Oh, I think so. And I would say that we've got the infrastructure in place to grow. The natural gas pipeline that we brought here, we have E911, and not every county our size has that in the state.
Well, look at the problems in neighboring counties.
Right. That's a plus for people that want to move here. We have a hospital, a medical center that is really an outstanding facility. We have the state university system here. We have a wonderful community college. And there are a lot of, I call them infrastructure type things here that are available for people to come. The science and technology building up at Clinton Community, if we had an industry that wanted to come in and set up specialized training, and I know you've been up there to tour that building, that facility, they can adapt that facility to do specialized training. With fiber optic we have up in the area now, our telephone availability and the electrical system that feeds the area are top notch. We've got the rail system running through here. Gary Douglas were here, he would tell you that we've got the best north-south connection between the world's
hear him saying it right
ports.
now, can't you, Calvin?
So,
he's a good preacher, isn't he?
He is. And we've got a lot of pluses going for us. So I think one of the things we're looking at that I neglected about the future is the Cumberland Head Connector Road. That will, believe it or if people believe it or not, it's going to be an important link up between two states and two interstate networks, and eventually might lead to some type of thinking about a east-west corridor, transportation corridor going across. There's a study that's being conducted that we're part of. It was a grant that Congressman McHugh got. It's being run by out of Watertown area, that's looking at the very issues of improving transportation in the North Country.
Ask me if I remember Bob McEwen's rooftop highway from all those years ago.
I think, didn't Bob Garrow run on one time as a congressman on that issue and was defeated soundly?
Yep. So who knows? These are all things that could add to a very bright future. I doubt if we'll ever go with former Mayor Roland St. Pierre's idea of building a tunnel under the under the lake, but like I said, I just love to hear new ideas and love to hear them worked out, and we have a good system of doing that up here. We may be a lot of things, but I think they can't accuse us of not being progressive, because there are a lot of wonderful ideas if people just take time to listen. How closely tied are you to the New York State budget?
We're tied very closely. That has a major impact on us every year. And this year, over 60% of our tax levy goes to support Medicaid.
Think about it.
60% of the 14+ million that we raise for taxes, over 60% of that goes just for Medicaid. So if the governor changes the Medicaid program or funding formulas, huge impact on us. And we have several of our departments, probation is another one, the health department, mental health, that receive a portion of their budget in state aid funding. So if they change the funding formulas, downward. We usually are get the brunt of that and take a hit. And unfortunately, many times it comes in the middle of our budget year, because our budget year begins January 1st. The state budget starts April 1st, is never ready until July 1st or so.
Not in recent memory, anyway.
So it's half of our budget year is gone before we could understand what a fiscal impact could be. So one of the things the county legislature does at the beginning of every year is we belong to the New York State Association of Counties, which has all 62 counties in New York State represented. They are the lobbying group for all counties collectively. They hold a legislative conference in Albany, usually early February. This year it'll be February 11th through the 13th, I believe. And we put together a publication with our concerns. We try to assess what the impact will be of the governor's proposed budget, which isn't always the final document. And we go down and lobby collectively and then individually. We collectively as 52 or 62 counties, and then individually we go and see our own state representatives, the senator and the 2 assembly people in our case, and tell them about our concerns.
You talked about our jail being full and what an impact that has on not being able to bring in out-of-county revenues. The governor's been talking an awful lot about changing those old Rockefeller drug laws. That'll impact cell space immediately if that ever happens.
Well, I don't know if that's going to have an impact locally or not, because most of the rules they're going to relax are people that are sentenced for more than 1 year.
True.
And anybody, as you know, in our county jail is a sentence for 1 year or less. It might make an impact if they do something about first-time offenders that are going to do less than a year. That might have an impact on the jail population to our benefit.
Yeah. A lot of things to think about. Tremendous things to think about. One thing that dawns on me that we haven't mentioned, and that is the connection, the direct connection between the Clinton County Legislature and all the different parts of this piece of pie we call Clinton County. You have liaisons for various departments, don't you?
We have 9 standing committees of the legislature, and everybody but the chairperson chairs one of those. Because of the committee structure, most departments, if not all of them, come under one committee or another. For example, the probation department would come under the Public Safety Committee. It used to be called Judicial and Public Safety, but it's Public Safety. And probation is involved with public safety, so they would have the probation department, 911, social services. There's a Children and Youth and Family Services Committee that takes care of the Youth Bureau, social services, the nursing home. And we have a health committee, which takes care of health and mental health. We have a government operations committee, which takes care of Board of Elections, the county administrator's office, the historian, the county clerk's office, the veterans office. So just about every department falls under one of these committees. And the standing committees meet once a month and talk over whatever issues that need to be talked over, and pass resolutions send resolutions out of that to the full board for adoption. And whether it be approving a contract between a service provider and the department, in the case of Board of Elections, it might be permission to go out and seek proposals to buy new voting machines, which everybody seems to think
he's
is a
going
hot
to
topic.
open up that can of worms, isn't he? I knew if we stayed around long enough, we'd be talking about that, but boy, that is a topic. After the last presidential election, at least we've got to talk about it.
It is, and we've been talking about it here in Clinton County for the last several years. In fact, Dan Mitchell, who used to be the Democratic election commissioner, tried to convince as many of the towns as possible that it was in their best interest to buy new voting machines. And the last election time, the information that I got our voting machines, many of them are over 40 years old.
Sure.
And we have difficulty getting parts for them. We had a voting machine complete failure in one of the election districts this year, and we only had one spare voting machine. And it's not up to the county to sponsor and furnish these voting machines. It's up to each individual municipality, but the county election commissioners coordinate all this. So this is a big issue. And now, this year, there's talk of either federal money coming and standardizing all voting machines across the country, or state money coming to sponsor some type of voting machine initiative. And even when Danny looked at this a few years ago, and now Mike Brooks and Judy Leahy are looking at it, the Republican and Democratic commissioners, there are very few machines that meet New York State election law requirements. So you're just limited to 2 or 3 vendors. So it's an issue that certainly we're going to look at again this year, and it will be a topic that will be discussed seriously because of the problems that we saw in Florida.
As long as we don't go to punch cards, I don't care if I never hear the word Chad again, except for my grandson, whom I dearly love. But it is something we have to talk about. There are a lot of things we could talk about the future of Clinton County and how it's put together, but we wanted to give our viewers today a general view of how this well-oiled machine works on a daily basis. And while many of our viewers are doing their thing, trying to earn a living and support their kids and get them in a good school and so on and so forth, this county is working in many ways on their behalf. It's very hard for any resident of Clinton County to not be touched by something that happens within that machine every single day of their lives, whether it's the roads they drive on or the buildings they visit, or whether they're stopping down here to get their motor vehicle license or whatever.
That's such a, I guess, good point to bring up, Gordy, because I was once talking to a politician in city government who has long since moved out of the area, so it's not anybody that's around the area. And he often asked me what he got for his county tax dollar. And I was trying to explain to him, I said, well, we fund a county nursing home. He said, I don't have anybody in a nursing home. And I thought, and I said, well, we fund a county jail. You know, and there's, well, I don't have anybody in jail. And I said, we fund a landfill. And he stopped and he said, well, I said, don't tell me you don't create any garbage. And he said, you got me. So there are, if people think about it, there are things, just as you said, everyday life that touches somebody somehow, whether it be the motor vehicle thing that you mentioned, but the county road system. There's 360 some miles of county road. And most people that live in the city and work outside the city travel a county road to go to work. Or if they live out in the country and they come to the city, they live on a county road or travel on a city road to get to work at the hospital or the prison or wherever they work.
And, you know, as if we didn't have anything else to talk about, when it snows 2 feet in the wintertime, which fortunately doesn't happen that many times in the winter anymore, we like to compare who's doing the best job plowing what roads.
You know, and plowing is one business that the county got out of a few years ago.
Yeah.
For the most part, we, except in the town of Ellenburg, we contract with every municipality for every mile of county road except what's in the town of Ellenburg.
I think a lot of our viewers don't know that. I now just remembered that.
And we pay, I believe Al Rasco told me just recently, it's almost $1 million that we give to other municipalities for snow removal on the various county roads. And we take care of the roads in the town of Ellenburg ourselves out of the Ellenburg garage. And we have actually a shift work that we use up there that the union agreed to, the men, and we do a good job up there. But the towns do a very good job for us too. And of course, they don't think they get paid enough, but we do that dance
does?
every few years.
Who
but
does?
we think we pay them very well. And this has always been the case where We didn't plow a lot of our county roads, but a few years ago, we were in the snow plowing business, contracting with the state on state roads. And we had a terrible stretch of 374 between Lion Mountain and Dannemora that was impossible to keep up with. And we wanted an increase. Legendary. And we wanted an increase, and the state wouldn't give us that, so we opted out and gave them a year's notice and canceled. And that's basically when we got out of the snow plowing business, except Ellenberg, at the time the highway superintendent didn't want to plow the roads for the county. So, and it's something that's a mutual benefit to the town, because a lot of times the town is going over a county road with their blade up. If they weren't working for the county, the blade would be up, and they'd be traveling that same to get to a county road to plow it. So it makes good economic sense for them to do it, and it makes good economic sense for us to do it that way.
I think we've covered a lot of ground here today. Do you think there's any specific or important area of the county operation that we should mention before we wrap it up, Bill?
Yeah, I'm sure we left out something, Gordon. And when somebody sees this, we'll run out.
We have learned a whole new vocabulary over the last few years having to do with the electronic world, with computers and broadband and fiber optics and a couple things we've already mentioned here today, but it's the wave of the future. The communications is one of my favorite words. We talked about communications in this room, but internationally we have access to so much information that I can see why people become addicted to that computer when they start doing research. I can learn more in 2 hours than I could during a full semester college course sometimes by just getting on the internet. Clinton County is finally getting on board, aren't they?
Clinton County, a couple of years ago, actually created a wide area network where we linked all the departments together with computers in our own wide area network. Last year, we started development on a web page, and many of the departments now have access to the internet. It's limited. Department heads choose who gets access to the internet on their computers, but this year we will be rolling out a website which you'll be able to, the John Q. citizen will, if he has the computer access, will be able to come and find out about Clinton County government. We'll be having profiles of legislators on there, and all of the departments will have their own page with information. There will be meetings, the schedules that will be put out, resolutions will be published. People will be able to get a lot of information off the internet on Clinton County's webpage.
That's interesting. The district attorney, by the way, has had a web page for some time. It's a fairly comprehensive web page, and people for information about the judicial process in general, about what victim services are available and what happens in terms of the purview of the district attorney's office has been on for a while. So we're getting online.
We're getting there. Do you know that I probably use our email, our internal email system, both internally and externally, I should say, probably 30 to 40 times at least a day, that I have contact with department heads, staff members even within my office if I want to alert them to something that's coming up. Legislators, we have 8 of our 10 legislators have email addresses, so we can send them stuff.
Only 8 out of 10? Come on, let's get into the country here.
So that's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
I think last year we probably had maybe 3 I had regular email traffic with. So to have this type of communication system, I think, is good for people. It saves me a lot of time. There's also, as you know, a paper trail that you can create if you send an email to somebody and you want to print out what question you asked them, what day. It does all that for you and saves a lot of time. Saves a lot of time on the telephone.
It really does, because, we're gregarious people here in Clinton County. We love to shoot the bull as we're doing here today. We've killed a lot of them since we started this program. But it's true. If you and I get on the phone and I've got a specific question to ask you or you of me, we're going to say, how are you? How's the family? And you're right. It can take up a lot of your time in the course of a day, whereas if you can send out one sentence that requires a two-word answer. That does, in terms of the economy of time. We're all doing more now, I think, in our lives in general than we did in years past. Sometimes that's good and sometimes that's bad. In your case, that's something we haven't talked about since we started this program, the chain of command. There's a lot to do from your chair in the other room in a given week, in a brand new year and new budgets coming up. And I don't know, do you have all the help you need right now?
Actually, I just went to the Personnel Committee last night to ask for, to backfill a deputy position that's been vacant for a year. I've had somebody filling it on a part-time basis, but I lost my full-time deputy a year ago in December. And so last year was a budget problem. I didn't start the backfill process until later in the year because of budgetary concerns. I didn't have enough money in the budget to pay for a new assistant, only for part of a year. So that'll help me a lot. And government grows. Earlier when you were talking about the makeup of my office, we probably process 1,000 vouchers every 2 weeks and probably pay out $750,000 worth of expenses on vouchers every 2 weeks. That's a lot of paperwork for a lot of people. And department heads send in things for mileage or supplies that they buy, every kind of expense you can imagine. And running a nursing home, running a jail, you buy things, you constantly are processing paperwork to pay for this. And we push a lot of paper in this office for
It's an understatement.
For government. So computers are a major factor in this. We just purchased a new software system to be Y2K compatible, and we're just ringing out the first year under that system, closing out, starting a new year. So it's been a learning curve, and we really have been very, very busy in the office.
You know, one thing that dawns on me, the longer we sit here, the more topics are going to come into our minds. You got one just walking out of the room and back. But we haven't talked about grants. How many grants does this county administer?
We probably, at the present time, have well over 100 grants, 100 different grants. And a lot of the programs now, like in the probation field, and I keep going back to there because you work under a grant program. And probation on the state level has gone to, rather than increasing their core funding for expenses, they're trying these grant programs. They start out as pilot programs with grants, and then they become so necessary and so good that they're doing such a good job of in one particular aspect of probation that they keep funding it year after year. And that's happened a lot in probation. You probably have 8 or 9 different grants going in probation right now. And in the health department, we have several like that. Mental health, we have several. So social services, new pots of funding come out with grants. And the district attorney that you work with closely, she administers a couple of different grants now. So there are a lot of grants that we see every month. It seems like we have a renewal of a grant. So
I just wanted to bring that up because there are so many and because it's actually a fairly vital part of what happens in Clinton County. Let's get down to the nitty-gritty here. And first of all, you told us there was a change in the makeup of the legislature. Let's run down the list of current legislators as we're recording this program in January 2001 to let people know who they are and what areas they represent.
Well, I'll try to go area by area. Area number 1 is Celine Paquette, and that's in the Champlain, Rouse's Point, part of the town of Moores area. And Celine was the chair last year and is a returning legislator. I think she's starting her 6th year in county government. Sam Tremblay is area 2. Sam has the largest geographic area. He represents Altona, part of Moores, Ellenburg, the town of Clinton or Cherubusco, part of the town of Dannemora, I mentioned the town of Ellenburg, so I think he's got 5 different towns that he represents.
And maybe 2 provinces of Canada. We're not sure. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
And Sam's been here. He's the most tenured legislator here now. I think he came back in 84, 85 when Lefty LaBarge died in office. The Area 3 is Joe Giroux, and he's got Shazy, Beekmantown area. And I think that's the only area that he has. We have Sarah Rowden, who's a new legislator, and Joe's also starting his 6th year. Sarah Rowden is a newly elected legislator. She lives on Cumberland Head in the town of Plattsburgh, and she represents the town of Plattsburgh and part of the town of Beekmantown. Area 5 is Keith DeFayette, and Keith is starting his 6th year on the county legislature. He represents Schuyler Falls, part of the town of Peru, and I don't know if he has part of the town of Plattsburgh or not. I think a very small part. Area 6 is Bob Butler, and Bob Butler represents Saranac and Black Brook. Bob was a legislator 17 years ago for 4 years and was recently elected when John Maid decided not to run in the Saranac area. Area 7, the Peru, town of Ausable, Keysville area is Jim Langley, who's now the chairperson of the legislature. And Jim was elected in a special election in 1998 and is starting his 3rd year in office. Area 8 is Jackie Walker. Jackie represents the town of Plattsburgh and the city of Plattsburgh, the south end of the city, and she lives in Cliff Haven and represents part of the Salmon River Road in that area. Area 9 is John Gallagher, and John represents most of the west end of the city. I don't know the wards in the city. I've never learned that system. And John is a newly elected legislator who was elected in Area 9. Area 10 is Bob Hines, who took over for Don Garrett, who retired after 27 years, ran and won, and he represents the north end of the city and just a tiny portion of the town of Plattsburgh over on Tom Miller Road, Beekman Street area.
The legislature meets every week?
Legislature meets the 2nd and 4th Wednesday of every month. And the first week of the month, 8 of the standing committees meet Monday through Thursday. They have back-to-back meetings. And on the 3rd Wednesday of the month, we have Finance Committee scheduled on the 3rd Wednesday of every month. So legislators, the committee makeup, every legislator serves on 4 or 5 committees, and every single legislator serves on the Finance Committee. So they have roughly 5 committee assignments. And we try to get the meetings done in the first week of the month so that the resolutions can go on for the 2nd meeting of the month. And then the finance, we have the 3rd Wednesday, which has been a tradition around here for the many years. Last year it was changed for a while because the legislator that chaired finance wanted it the 1st Wednesday of the month. But basically speaking, that's legislators' basic schedule. They also attend, they also have some liaison assignments. This year, I think the chairperson is going to have some people be liaisons to Clinton Community College. We have liaison to the Chamber of Commerce. We have liaison to Soil and Water Conservation Service, Cooperative Extension, the Workforce Development area. I think I've hit most of them. But they also have to go to those meetings, and a lot of the legislators attend their town board meetings. So Celine Paquette, for example, would attend the Moores Town Board meeting, the Champlain Town Board meeting, Village of Ross's Point Board meeting, and the Village of Champlain Board meeting. So they're busy folks, and they put in a lot of time.
It behooves these people to know what's going on in their own locality, especially when they represent that area and the people in it.
It does, and a lot of the town supervisors and town council folks are grateful that the legislators go. And I know in Celine's case, she worked hard at preparing for those meetings and would gather information and let them know what was going on in county government, because there were a lot of things going on, and if something was going to impact them, she would make sure to tell them. Jim Langley goes to the Peru Town Board meeting and the Town of Ausable Town Board meeting and keeps them informed. So there's several of the legislators that do that as a regular habit.
Well, it's a laudable thing to do, to run for office. Not easy, but all these people have most of these people have regular full-time jobs, and sometimes it seems that their position as a politician or legislator is almost a full-time job all by itself in some weeks, I'm sure.
It is. Many times they will put in 30 hours a week, especially the first week of the month when we have all the meetings, and if they have any town board meetings. And then they have a lot of reading to do, preparation work for committee meetings, and preparation for the regular meetings. These folks, I think most legislators I've worked with in the past have always been pretty faithful about doing their work and being prepared for meetings and calling in and asking questions ahead of time. They work hard. They go and visit their department heads that they're representing on their committee areas, and they find out what the problems are, what the concerns are. And I think it's generally good for morale that they show up at a department.
I think you're absolutely right. I think that's essential. Let's talk about department heads. Now that you've mentioned them, we have a lot of departments. I think we've mentioned at least the name of every department in Clinton County, but let's talk about the people who head them at this current time.
Well, I've got my directory open so I don't slip up and miss anybody. But the first department that we have listed is Office of the Aging. And I'm sure folks realize what they do. Catherine Felty, who we call Kay Felty, does a terrific job running that department and has a great following and is really a true champion for the senior citizens in Clinton County. The next area I have listed is the airport. And Ralph Hensel heads up the airport. Ralph is a retired military navigator, was once head of the New York State Airport Managers Association, president. He's well respected, and he runs a good operation. Ralph is the FAA, when we had our initial meetings about moving the airport, made it a point to tell the legislators what a fine person Ralph was and how knowledgeable he was in the area. We have the alcohol program that falls under the mental health department, and Sandy Lucia runs that program. We have Alternatives to Incarceration as a program in your area, and it's run by David Marcoux. It's a grant program that we do have. We have our Buildings and Grounds department, which is very much in the forefront. I think they do a terrific job. We do a lot of things in-house that other people would contract out for, and Wayne Guerin heads up the Buildings and Grounds Committee. The CART system we contract out to run that particular program, and it's a grant program that is partially funded with the grant, partially funded with the fairs, but that's run out of the planning department by Nick Rickert, who works for Rodney Brown. We have a central printing and mailing department, and Dave Gadway is downstairs and runs that department for us, and actually Phyllis Duval, who's in purchasing, oversees that for me. The next one that I have listed is the county attorney, and our county attorney is Dennis Curtin, and I probably contact Dennis Curtin 3 or 4 times a week, at least.
Sometimes 3 or 4 times a day.
And our assistant county attorney is Bill Favreau, and when Dennis has a conflict or Dennis is not available, I work with Bill Favreau. And the county coroner is Dave Dona, and Dave's a guy I suppose a lot of people wouldn't like to see around their house, but Dave has an important job in Clinton County, and kind of a thankless job, and he's really dedicated to that. Probably everybody knows our county clerk, John Zerlo. Especially a lot of folks will be seeing this program. John oversees the county clerk's office, which also contains motor vehicle, and Glenn Olds runs the motor vehicle office for John. Even though it's not a county department, the court clerk upstairs is Terry Gordon. Terry's a state person, and he's the chief court clerk for Clinton County. And on the third floor in the court system, we have 3 judges. Family court judge is Tim Lawless, county court judge Pat McGill, and the surrogate judge Kevin Ryan. And those folks are all state employees, but they're part of the family here in the building, and we do have interaction with them several times. The district attorney is also on the third floor, and the district attorney is Penny Clute right now, and she's running for re-election, I guess, this year. She's elected to a 4-year term, and we hope to be moving Penny down to the second floor in the probation office when that goes out, so we can make some room on the third floor for the county family court judge. Board of Elections, I mentioned we have 2 election commissioners. I know I mentioned those a few minutes ago. Judy Leahy is a Republican commissioner, Mike Brooks a Democratic commissioner. And they work on the first floor, and those folks are busy folks, and they had a tough election season last year with some of the things that happened and some primaries and some of the very close races that they had. And they had a court order that right away they had to lock up the absentee ballots that were coming in, and we had to develop a system for that. And next department is emergency services that Jim King runs, and I think Jim is a legend in Clinton County from the ice storm days and a lot of the other good work that he does. I think if the volunteer fire department people could nominate somebody for president of the United States, it would be Jim.
Would be it, yeah.
In the treasurer's office, Janet Dupree is the county treasurer, and she's elected for a 4-year term. And Greg Bell is the finance manager in her office. Our health department, currently the acting director of the health department is Paula Lacombe. And there's several units within the health department that are headed up by various people, and I'd probably trip all over the names if I tried to get through that. But we do have Director of Patient Services in that department. That's our home care folks. We have an environmental section. We have educational section, and we have an early intervention section. So that with 100 employees, you can imagine that there's a lot of units within that particular department. Our highway department, Al Rasco is the superintendent of highways. Al is a licensed engineer and is a great help to me personally. He helps me with some of the technical stuff on the landfill issues, and he's been a very progressive guy for the department. He runs an excellent department, does a great job, very good with managing with what money he gets, and just will do anything for you. And I had a lot of interaction with Al when we had the floods in '96, and we had and then again in '98 when we had the floods in the Peru area. And Al worked just tirelessly getting the federal money here and doing the paperwork, and I can't say enough good things about Al. Our historian is Addie Shields, and
Talk about an icon. Huh?
she's a treasure in Clinton County. She just has more knowledge than anybody, and I'm sure if she were on this tape, she could fill up 2 shows for you.
She's been on lots of tapes.
Our landfill is run by Casella Waste Systems. The gentleman that's up there working for Casella as the local manager is a guy by the name of Dick Kelly, somebody they brought in. and I have a lot of contact with Dick. We have something called a legal defense administrator. We have to provide legal defense for indigent people, and we just had a new administrator appointed for that. Lori Cantwell was appointed, and I've met a couple of times with Lori already in the transition, and she's getting her feet wet. The mental health program is run by the Director of Community Services, and that gentleman is John Johnson. And I don't think a lot of people realize what a big organization and umbrella Community Services is. The Behavioral Services North, which used to be Northern New York Center and the Mental Health Association, recently combined. That falls under John's umbrella, as well as the ARC, the alcohol program, and the mental health clinic. So he's got some big shoes, and he does a great job. John's been here a long time. The personnel department is Alan Gibson, and Alan is kind of new at the job. He hasn't been here probably but 3 or 4 years, but he took over after Carol Wallet passed on, and Alan's doing a great job as personnel director. Rodney Brown is in planning, and Rodney is a key figure. He's also the acting deputy county administrator at this point. He took over and gave me a hand last year, and really does a good job for the county. He's one of the unsung heroes in county government. Rodney does a lot of grant work. As I mentioned before, he oversees the CART program. And any special projects that come up, Rodney seems to get tagged with those. And right now, Rodney is looking at implementing GIS, which is Geographic Information Systems. And that is going to be a big boon to Clinton County when that occurs. We'll be able to use it in real property. Farmers will be able to use it, and it might be something that when we get to that, you might want to do a show with Rodney on GIS. We could do redistricting for counties based on the new census, and that will probably be one of the things that we look at this year is redistricting, or next year once the census figures come out. I mentioned before purchasing agent. Phyllis Duval is the purchasing agent for Clinton County. She works out of my office and does all of the purchasing work for Clinton County, which includes capital bids, bids for supplies. We have our own central supply room downstairs, which we buy paper by the tractor trailer load, as you can imagine. It's a big job. The real property office, which is right next door to us, is run by Jim Gagno. Jim is a person that came up through the ranks and department head, probably one of the most knowledgeable guys in New York State in the real property area. Has done probably more revals than any county director and done them well.
Thank God for Star, too, I might add, now that I'm a senior citizen.
We have our sheriff, Jack Lawless. Jack, of course, runs the Clinton County Sheriff's Department, which also includes responsibility for the jail. Tremendous operation. People don't realize what a responsibility that is, and that it's not a cushy elected job. That's a tough operation. Lots of liability, lots of responsibility. Well over 100 inmates a day. Numerous civil papers that are served. Just Jack's into all sorts of things. We have our Social Services Commissioner, Jay LePage. And Jay is very quickly, he's got to be well known in his job across the state.
Getting a lot of hats, that guy.
He's also, we merged the Youth Bureau with that particular department last year, and Jay took over that responsibility. He also oversees the JTPA, Joint Training Partnership Act office, and he has been asked to speak at several functions statewide of initiatives that he's done at Clinton County Department of Social Services, and he just got another 6-year appointment, and I'm glad to have him as commissioner another 6 years. The Stop DWI program, we merged that particular program with the health department's education component under Lori Williams. So we don't have a director anymore, we just have a coordinator, and that person works for Lori Williams. We have our weights and measures operation. Bill Wilson, the guy that goes and checks all the gas pumps to make sure you're getting everything you pay for at these high prices, that the gallon's correct. He goes in grocery stores and weighs food and checks various items in there, spot checks, so we make sure that we're getting what we pay for. And he checks a lot of scales, meat scales, scales that for trucks, so kind of an unknown area, but an important job. We have our Veterans Service Agency, which is headed up by Warren Manor, and Warren does just a great job for the veterans. He's been a big advocate and one of the best directors we've ever had, and I think he's brought a new awareness. He alone, I think, was singly responsible for convincing the legislature to increase the exemption for veterans, which they did, and it's been a big plus for a lot of veterans. And then he helped sign them up for that, helped them fill out the paperwork, and he manages to bring in a lot of money. He fought very hard to get the Veterans VA Clinic established here in Plattsburgh, which we have now, and then worked very hard to get more people signed up for it. And his numbers continue to grow and grow, and he's well respected and well liked, and he just got reappointed, and I'm glad to see that.
It's quite a list.
I think so.
I hope that we've opened a few eyes in the course of this program today. As I said at the outset, it behooves all the citizens of Clinton County to know who's working on their behalf, at least from the outside, if not from the inside out, at least from the outside in. And I think Chairman of the Clinton County operation here, the administrator, Bill Bingel, has served to open our eyes and turn those pages, given us a little insight into what happens inside Clinton County and what some of our hopes and dreams are, and how the county is tied together by some 800 employees who work here every day of the week. Bill, again, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of what I know is an extremely busy schedule to take a couple hours with us and just sit down and explain the process. I hope it's not the last time.
Well, I hope not, and I appreciate the opportunity, and I encourage people, if they do have questions, to call their elected representatives or to call me and show up at a meeting and become interested in county government. One of my favorite things to do is when we have school tours, and we get a lot of those, bring people in the chambers, and whether you've got second graders here or eighth graders or seniors in high school, I always encourage young folks to get involved in their community, be active. And as we started talking at the beginning of this about volunteering and getting back what you give, tenfold, and I think those are words to live by. And government, public service is not for everybody, but I think everybody should be a public servant at one time or another in some way or some fashion.
That's a profound statement and absolutely true. Again, thanks for all you've done for the last 2 decades plus, and again for inviting us here today, and best of luck in 2001.
Thank you, Gordy.
Administrator Bill Bingel of Clinton County, Calvin behind the camera, Gordy Little here, inviting you to join us next time, because who knows where we're going to be for our little corner.